Robin Foy. A very warm welcome.
Thanks very much. Always happy to have a chat.
Yes, it's great to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
Yes. Behind me you see Siska.
Ah, yes, yeah.
Hello.
She's one of the members of the circle. You have seen her before, I believe.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah.
And
in the background here I have the eldest of our cats, that's Jazzy.
oh yes, I love it. I love it.
Yes, yeah.
We're fond about cats. You are a physical researcher and investigator of physical mediumship and phenomena, and you were one of the core members of the Skull experiment. This took place in the 90s, mainly in the home UK village, Skull.
Yeah, that's right.
And the report of the Skull experiment you can see yourself, of course, on YouTube. And in our conversation I will share more links, of course, towards all of your work.
Okay,
Including Skull. So, how are you doing at the moment, Robin?
At the moment, basically, we're having a very hard time of it here in Spain because we're in total lockdown and we're not even allowed to go out for exercise.
Oh my God.
It's sort of almost like being in a prison cell in many ways. We can go to the supermarket and we can go to the pharmacia, but that's it for the time being. And our circle has really closed down for the time being because no two people are allowed to be in a car at the same time here in Spain. And so our two local sitters have not been able to come here and sit with us. And we have two more sitters who live, they haven't started yet, but they live in Wales. And their intention is to drive over here to Spain, set up home here and be a permanent part of our circle, which will make us a circle of 6 people. But at the moment, we're sort of, we're not really getting anything. Sandra and I have tried a few times, but basically we've been having blank sittings.
Oh, really, really. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for that. And of course, in Spain, everything because of the coronavirus is more, there's much more to do around it.
I'm afraid so, yes, yeah.
Even in our country, they're talking again to make less rules. But
yes, that's right. So they've extended our lockdown for another 2 to 3 weeks. So I think it's going to be sort of well into May before we get the opportunity to really start moving around again.
Yeah. Yes, this is something. It is, and we have to go through it, don't we?
That's right. No choice.
No choice, and we will. And we will, of course, as best as we can. Because
that's right.
We have, yes. But while we're talking about this coronavirus and all the deaths that are, so many people died, don't they?
Well, that's right, and I really do feel that the spirit world have got an awful lot on their shoulders at the moment to try and deal with it. And I think that's why perhaps not just us, but other circles that we know of are having very poor results at the moment, because the veil between us and the spirit world is extremely thick with the worries and the problems.
Absolutely. Also, we can't come together with the circle, of course,
right.
But experiments with the Zoom, the new technical stuff. And we had our first evening with good results, but
good.
It's totally different, of course. It
is indeed, yeah.
It's absolutely totally different. And I put the results now on the YouTube so people can see that Zoom with the cat. But it's very sad period with so many people who died and people who are fighting at the moment
that's right.
for their lives. And of course, spirit world is so active to help everywhere they can. I know it's absolutely
that's right.
true what you're saying. But while we're talking about this death, Robin, how do you personally look at death? generally speaking? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, it is indeed, but it's very simple to us because we've been involved in this for so long now. In total, I think it's 48 years we've actually been sort of intimately involved with physical mediumship, physical phenomena, various circles, various organizations, some of which I started myself and some which I co-founded with other people such as Eileen Roberts, who ran she was a very famous medium in the UK who ran an organization called the ISM, the Institute of Spiritualist Mediums. And there were about 5 or 6 branches of this organization. And for some time, I was chairman of one of the branches in Romford. And whilst I was chairman there, she and I were talking about the link of home circles that started in the 1930s. And that was founded by a chap called Noah Zerdin. And he was very active in bringing home circles together all over the world. And it was a great organization at the time. They met up. Sometimes there were very, very big meetings and very big demonstrations of physical mediumship with 100, 200 people present. And I had an idea with Eileen Roberts to also, Noah Zerdin was in fact instrumental in finishing off and polishing the final mediumship of Leslie Flint to its wonderful stage that he had for most of his life. So when I was talking to Eileen Roberts about this, we agreed between us that we would set up an organisation called the ISM Home Circle Link, and we did this. So I ran that for about 4 years, and I believe it's still going to this day. But that's one of the things that sort of people didn't know about us. That's sort of been in the background. But we brought together circles from all over the world. And on one occasion, Sandra and I visited one of the member circles that was in Egypt. And that was a very, very interesting experience. The chap that ran it was a professor in the Cairo University. And we actually had a sitting with him, which was very, very interesting because we were all pretty sure that some of the phenomena that occurred around the feet of the sitters was not due to spirits, but due to furry animals
Yeah.
that were there. And we met another circle in while we were there in Israel, and we had quite a long communication with those people afterwards, and they came and stayed with us. So the home circle link in itself was a great move towards what became the Noah's Ark Society. And it's interesting because the Noah's Ark Society started, I founded it. I was asked to found it by an independent voice message that I had whilst I was sitting in a circle in Ilkeston in Derbyshire. And it was Noah Zerdin himself that actually asked me to start this, to join together physical mediumship all over the world and save it in 1990 from becoming totally obsolete and disappearing altogether. And so that's exactly what we did. And we stayed in that. Well, I was chairman of that organisation for 4 years, and that carried on until well into the new century, into the new millennium. And throughout that organisation, we were able to really get public interest back in physical mediumship and physical phenomena. So it really did the job that Spirit wanted us to do. And I named it the Noah's Ark Society because Noah, the Noah in it was actually after Noah Zerdin, who gave me the original message. Noah's Ark was a biblical means of saving animals, and the Ark actually was the Ark of the Covenant, was also very much involved in psychic matters. So it all fitted together, and the Noah's Ark Society went on its way, and we had our first public demonstration of physical mediumship. I think it was in 1991, and that was in a hotel in Leicester. and the medium that demonstrated for us there was a chap called Colin Fry, who I discovered when I was sitting in the same circle as him in Brighton in years gone by.
Okay, I didn't know that you discovered Colin Fry.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Oh, yeah. God, that was a discovering. It was
and he was our first public medium when we had a demonstration of physical mediumship at the Noah's Ark Society.
But he was also a physical medium, not only a mental medium.
Well, he was basically a physical medium to start off with, and he developed his mental mediumship later.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Indeed, he did, yes.
Oh, wow. And what kind of physical phenomena was he involved with?
Well, he was an ectoplasm-based physical medium, and so everything that was happening was being done with ectoplasm. And he had independent voice. He had direct voice through the trumpet. He had levitation. He had various other things going on there, and it was all very, very interesting, and it was good phenomena at the time. Very much at that time, it was extremely rare, and it was the second year, I think, of the Noah's Ark Society in 1992 when we booked a week eventually at Stansted, the Stansted College, and the moment we announced it, we actually filled the whole of the college within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So it booked out absolutely madly at the time. And that week we had there was fantastic. It was very good. And after the first demonstration that we did for the public in the Noah's Ark Society with Colin Fry, who at the time we called Lincoln, because he being a physical medium, we didn't want his name to become widely known at that stage. Because he might not have been able to handle all the inquiries he got. So he was just Lincoln at that time, which was an anagram of Colin, of course. And through that first demonstration, we had the very first member of our Noah's Ark Society was a chap called Stuart Alexander.
Yes, was a picture of him. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stuart didn't tell us at that early stage that he was a physical medium. But when he attended the demonstration that we had by Colin Fry, he realised that it made so much difference to the public, and the public got so much out of it at that first demonstration, that he realised he had to also demonstrate himself for the society, and that's what he did. Yes. So we had a lot of residential seminars, the Noah's Ark Society, with the two mediums, either one or the other medium, or both of them demonstrating during the weekend.
Yes, that's great. That's very wonderful, of course. And of course, it always shaped the vision you have about this personal look on death, because I come back to that question.
Well, that's right. And every time anybody asks me about this, I always say, well, look, after 48 years, so many people still ask me, you've had all this experience, you must believe in life after death. And my answer to this is no, I don't believe in life after death. I know it to be a fact. And there's a big difference between knowledge and belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a blessing for you in your life, that you...
Very much so, yes.
This makes you a different person than most persons.
Oh, it does, yes. I mean, it totally takes away all fear of dying, because you know that basically all you're going to do is to walk from one room into another, and it's just unfortunate that the people you leave behind can't hear or see you.
Yes, that's it, yes. It's just leave the coat on the earth and you continue with living on the other side. That's it, that's so true. But still, I think there is a lot, let's say, if I'm looking for my English words now and then, I have a lot of respect for people who start to believe from believing. There are different entrances to come to knowing.
Yes.
But first of all, to come from believing, because I also didn't start with believing, but from early youth, from my childhood, from the knowing.
Yes.
So that must be very tough and hard to go through. So I have a lot of respect for people who believes from their heart, and it's worthwhile to do so because it will be rewarded, I believe.
Well, that's it exactly. And of course, people that come into this knowledge and into spiritualism, and I don't count myself a spiritualist. I think of myself as a spiritual scientist, which is basically, that's my research page, if you like, because I research life after death, and I research ways of people being able to prove totally that there is a life after death by physical mediumship. So people have to start somewhere, and I was very lucky, and so was Sandra, because both of us came into it by joining a circle, not same circle and not at the same time, but we both came into it by joining a circle that actually started out as a physical circle, and all I did was answer an advert in a newspaper in 1973, early in 1973.
Yes.
And it asked for people that were interested in psychic research.
Yes.
And when I went along for my interview there with several other people,
yes.
I realised that this was what I wanted to do. And the chap explained what physical mediumship was. So I knew all about physical mediumship before I knew anything at all about mental mediumship.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
The very first time that I sat in this physical circle, which was in Leicester in the UK, I was poked in the back by a materialised finger. So I sort of came into it really quite fast.
Yes.
And I actually, I had started a circle round about 1997, I think. 1977, in Romford, which is in Essex in the UK. And that ran for about a couple of years, and I was involved in it for a couple of years with a very, very good medium that we developed from scratch, right up. He was a natural trance medium, a chap called John Squires. And John was a really superb trance medium and started to get physical. And so we were actually sitting for physical. And we got quite a bit of physical, but this guy, unfortunately, was not a well man. And he had mood swings, which changed from time to time, that he would go along for a circle and he'd suddenly say, I'm not going to sit. So I got a little bit fed up with it. And in the end, I walked away from that circle. But a little while later, maybe a year after that, he started up again with a different circle and put an advert in the Psychic News. And that advert was actually answered by Sandra. And the crazy thing was that although I'd walked away from the circle, I still popped in to see the couple there every sort of 3 or 4 months. And the very day that I went in to see them on that first occasion was the day that Sandra went in for her interview about the circle. Mm-hmm. So I moved on for a while, and Sandra started sitting in that circle. And after a while, they were getting some very good results. The medium was getting independent voice, almost as good as Leslie Flynn. And I was, well, at least the spirit contacts in the circle asked if they'd get me back into the circle. So I came back into the circle. It was a very, very good circle indeed, but that's obviously where I met Sandra. And we married in 1979. So we've now been married 41 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's marvelous, of course. Some of the story I knew, and some aspects are new for me to hear. I love you telling and speaking about it again. So your personal view, point of view of how you look at death is, let's say, almost a piece of cake, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it is. I just take it as accepted, fully accepted, and fully true.
Yes. You know what if I may tell you what they told me, my spirit team told me that also from the spirit world to to make contact with me, they have so now and then they need a kind of medium there who comes in between to bring message forward. Not always, but do you think when you're in this, I hope it will be many years from now, will be in the spirit world, would you do that? Would you like to be, to contact, by example, me?
I probably would, but at the moment I'm not quite sure how I'll feel once I get over to spirit, because I've still got quite a lot of work to do over here before Sandra and I pass. We've got to get this centre up and running. That's the most important thing in our lives.
Yes, but dear Robin, I mean, only hypothesis. When I'm there, I would love to be in a channel, you know, for Earth. And that's why I just make the assumption that would you do that the same if it's possible?
Well, quite possibly I would, yes. Yeah.
You can't say, sure, I will.
Well, I honestly don't know what my lot will be once I get over to spirit. But I would like to think that I'll still be involved in the psychic research from the other side.
I would love to. Maybe I'm sooner there than you. We never know who's been there first. But let's keep contact for that.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's amazing how we have to deal with life here on Earth and how we can even look forward to life after this life.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah.
That's true. And still, it's difficult always to leave someone or groups or people or the Earth. We were talking about the skull experiment, the skull project. Would you mind me ask you a question about it?
No, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hypothetical question. I hope my pronunciation is not too bad. If you started the skull experiment today, what would be the big difference from then?
I don't think it would work in the same way as it did at that time. That was the time that was meant. That was the one time, and the experiment started and finished at the time it was supposed to. But I don't think today it would work in the same way, because there have been too many. Well, I say too many, but there have been an awful lot of technical advancements. And when we started the skull experiment, it was in 1992, actually, December 1992, and it ran on till November in 1998. And things were totally different there. You know, in my lifetime, things have changed so radically. I never touched a computer until 1992. Never. And yet, you know, nowadays I marvel at how a 5-year-old child can get onto a computer and do all sorts of things that I still have no idea what to do.
No. But still, like by example, next to the mediumship, mental mediumship and so on, and the circle, I do also EVP with the computer. And it was already, I think, in the end of the 50s. It was already done. Of course, it developed so wonderful that we can chat now so easy.
Well, that's right, and I marvel at how they've gone forward with EVP. I mean, actually, in my very first circle, I'm going back again to 1973. The chap that ran the circle was himself experimenting heavily with what he called the rowdy voices in those days. It wasn't even known as EVP then. And he and I both developed it to a very, very high degree, to the extent that we used to have little competitions to see who could get the most voices in a 5-minute period. And in the end, I was very happy that I managed to beat him once.
Yes. It's amazing how that develops. And it develops not only here on Earth, but also in the spirit world. They are really learning how to cope with it, and they're trying to find new ways. Yes.
Well, at the moment, we're experimenting with the original TDC device we had at Skull. That's a transdimensional communication device that we had at Skull, which is built with a small piece of germanium in it. Spirit were actually starting to work with it before we were really closed down by this virus, to the point that we have a boom box in our room which plays the music, and this is connected directly to an MP3 player, so that the music goes through there. And Spirit have taken to stopping the music, but when they stop the music, we know that they want us to plug in the original TDC device we had at Skull, so that they can attempt to speak to us verbally through the boombox. And that's actually what we've done on a few occasions. And earlier this year, in January, we had a group from the UK, a circle from the UK, came over to Spain to stay close to us and have a couple of sittings with us. And on one of those sittings, for the very first time, we managed to get a voice from the boombox when we'd plugged in this TDC, and we managed to get a voice, and it spoke 4 words quite audibly. So that's starting, and we know that once we get back to the work properly, that we will probably develop, and we hope fairly quickly, a conversation with our spirit team through the boombox. Quite literally, in Skull, we were able to hear the voices through the amplifier. It used to be a cassette tape recorder then, but this was connected to the TDC, so they could speak to us in that way. And also through that TDC, we actually eventually were getting contacts and speech with people from other dimensions, ETs and other dimensions, generally speaking. So they were able to speak to us audibly. And the very first person who designed that TDC machine was Thomas Edison, and he gave us the design on a psychic photograph, which was on a roll of photograph that had never been had any light on it at all. He was the very first, when we got it going properly, to speak to us using the TDC, and he spoke to us for 15 minutes from the spirit world, Thomas Edison, in his own voice.
It's excellent. This is really excellent. And while you're telling me this, my thoughts go quick, and I think, oh wow, this is also possible maybe for us to do with the Siri box, and
yes,
the EVP running, because they already were speaking to us that way.
Yeah,
but maybe it also can go through the box. We will experiment. We will try it.
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely.
I mean, there are all sorts of different ways in which these things can happen now. But of course, when we were doing this at Skull, it was all extremely new and very technical to us. But when you look back at it now, 30 years later, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm. But this conversation that you were talking about, 15 minutes with Edison, did you have a tape of it? Can I hear it?
Yes, it's all recorded. Yes, yeah.
And is it possible for me to hear it?
Well, it isn't, because we don't have the tapes at the moment. They're all being digitized. They're in Switzerland at this point in time.
In Switzerland, by a special medium, or?
No, it's just somebody who's taken on the job of digitizing our Skull tapes. Every single session that we had at Skull, in the Skull experiment, was audio taped. So we have audio tapes of every single session we had. They've never been released to the public.
No.
But we do believe that once we have our proper college, if you like, and our centre for the foundation in Antequera, in Andalusia, that any serious researchers will be able to use these recordings.
Because, of course, I must say, and a lot of us here wanted very much to listen to it and to see all the material that you still have and you want to share. And I hope very much that people will continue to, because maybe they have a lot of time now to work on it.
Oh, well, absolutely, yes. Yeah.
We have some time left over if you need some helping hand. So don't forget that.
Absolutely, all right.
Okay, but when you were talking about Thomas Edison, and I had a few questions coming in tonight for you. So from people that, are listening to our videos and from the circle, can I ask them to you?
Yes, of course you can, yeah.
Let's see, there was one. Has anything ever passed on by spirit friends about quantum mechanics of today to you?
Well, at the time of Skull, excuse me a moment, I must just get a quick drink.
Take some water. I take also a zip.
Yes, we've always been interested in quantum physics right from the very start, and we were very much aware when we started the Skull experiment that quantum physics was heavily involved in the work we were doing. But of course at Skull things were totally different, because the way that we were working with our spirit team was, to all intents and purposes, a brand new way of working, because we were working using only energy with the team, and the team were experimenting through us using energy, which was more leaning towards quantum physics, quantum mechanics, than the way that they'd used for so many years with ectoplasm. Mm-hmm. So we've always known that quantum physics, quantum mechanics is involved in this. And today we know members of our spirit team are scientists that have been heavily involved in this type of work in the past. But before quantum physics or quantum mechanics was ever invented or talked about in the UK or elsewhere in the world. These guys have learnt ever since, the value of the quantum scene. So I think all of these chaps have continued to learn ever since they've gone over to the spirit world, and they're now using that knowledge to help mediumship, and particularly physical mediumship, through various groups. And through the foundation that we've now started, the Spiritual Science Foundation, groups are coming together from all over the world to once again sit for physical mediumship. And the results that they're starting to obtain are much quicker and much better than the results that we got in our very early days. So things have moved on to the point that where a circle might in days gone by have sat for anything from 12 years to 15 years to really develop a good independent voice. Such was the case with Leslie Flint. Nowadays it happens in about 2 years with a lot of groups.
A lot of groups, you mean?
Yes,
and, such a positive sound I have not heard before. It's wonderful to hear you telling us this, because still now it's so rare, I believe. Of course I know Scott Milligan, of course I know wonderful voices through the trumpet that I heard, and of course I know Stuart Alexander. I haven't been in his seance, but I listened to his lectures.
Yes,
I know about you, and it's still so rare, and Kai Muge is a wonderful physical medium also, of course, also. But in Spain, it's not opened yet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's moving forward, quite fast now. I mean, we're getting inquiries every day for copies of the basic guidebook that was dictated to us at Skull by our spirit team. And although we've run out of copies that are actually printed, we do have a PDF now, so we're able to send it to people in a PDF for a donation of €10 to the Spiritual Science Foundation. And the word is spreading about it all and about our own work in Skull, because our really good friend Beata Siegert has taken my book, Witnessing the Impossible, and translated it into German. So that is also available as a PDF.
Loved it.
In German for €14.
Yes.
So all the time there's more and more interest, and I'm getting emails every day from people I've never heard of before, telling me about this and that and their interest. And through the foundation, we really want to help spirit spread the word, which is their intention, all over the world, to prove absolutely once and for all that there is life after death.
Yes, of course. The center in Spain, I mean the how say it, the home, the center that you want to start.
Yeah.
Is that still going strong?
Well, I mean, the thing is, the premises itself has not been occupied for 4 years, and we are still trying to raise the money we need to actually buy it. But we already have nearly 32,000 euros, and we think that the price for the property is going to be somewhere around about 200,000 euros. It's a big place. It was a restaurant, and the gallery or the salon downstairs will hold about 200 people, sitting theatre style.
Yes.
There is an outhouse at the back, which we're going to have totally rebuilt as a purpose-built seance room. We will include cabinets or no cabinets, whichever a medium prefers. We've never worked with a cabinet, and all our phenomena has occurred without a cabinet. But a lot of people are using cabinets, and again, one of our main workers for the foundation is Uwe Siegert, who uses a cabinet, and as of course does Kai. I think Kai is very much, well, in my mind, Kai is at the moment the very best ectoplasm based medium in the world. I don't think there's any doubt about that. No. He's getting the most wonderful phenomena. And again, he tells us that he was motivated to start sitting by Skoll. So Skoll has actually brought a lot of people into it, and has motivated a lot of people to start circles. Yes. So that they can build the phenomena for themselves.
Yes, and that's the most important. And otherwise, yes, there must come a lot of money still. So
we still need the money, so we're still looking for donations.
Yes,
but when you consider that this property has a total of 6¼ acres of land, plus a small outhouse at the back and a very big barn at the bottom of the property, which can be developed into a specialist centre, for science of it. So, and of course, the property itself is quite large, enough for us to have a small library and an office, etc. So it is very good value for money.
Yes, it is. Okay, you keep us up to date about it. It's nice to hear about it. To go back to the Skoll experiment and our time, the time of today, I thought if you could speak to someone who has a lot of knowledge in quantum physica and quantum mechanica, what was the most thing you would like to ask them to do for you?
Well, basically, to work out the quantum mechanics of what's going on in a physical circle.
But first of all, they need to have some knowledge about it.
Well, that's right. I mean, they have to learn the basics about psychic research and about physical mediumship in both ways.
Yes.
So they do need to have quite a lot of knowledge. But I do think that once we really get our own circle up and running, other circles who are working with us, such as the Siegert Circle in Germany, I do think that it will be explained to us by spirit scientists themselves exactly what quantum physics and quantum technical things are about, so that we hope that we will actually get the information from spirit and not just from people on Earth who are working with quantum physics.
Exactly. We serve them, don't we?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's so. Another question of one of the people who asked, let's see. Did one of the sitters from the past, very difficult name I see here, Montague King?
Montague, yes, he did. He certainly did contact us, and not very long after his death, we were asked to go to a private seance that was being run by a friend of ours, Denzel Fairburn, in Oxfordshire, in the UK. And the medium at that time for this seance was David. Oh crikey, know him so well. David Thompson,
Yes.
And we've sat with him so many times, and he's actually been over here. We brought him over to Spain to sit with us, but he did a special sitting in the hope of contacting Monty Keane, and half a dozen members of the SPR, the Society for Psychical Research, who were colleagues of Monty, were present. And because we knew him well, we were asked to go as well. Sandra and I went there. Sandra didn't tell anybody, but in her pocket, she had a crystal point, actually, which had been given to us by Monty Keane. She didn't mention that to anyone, and so nobody knew about it. And in the sitting, Monty himself materialized. He spoke his own eulogy that was used, it was taped and used at his memorial service, of him speaking literally in his own voice, independent voice, and for further proof, he said, "I think you've got something of mine." He walked over to Sandra, he put his materialized hand in her pocket and took out the crystal which he had given us.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm flabbergasted. Unbelievable. And who was sitting at that moment? You remember who was there present?
I can't remember everybody that was there. As I say, there were mainly members. I mean, the Fairbans were there. Denzel Fairbairn and his wife Kay, David Thompson, and I'm not sure who he had working with him at that time, but he had his circle leader there, and there's Sandra and I, and there were half a dozen members of the SPR, and that was about it. But the eulogy that was taped when he materialized using his own independent voice was actually played at his memorial service.
Oh my God, wonderful. Oh, I would love to hear all of it in time, I hope. Let's see another question for you. Do you receive you receive also yourself, of course, messages from the spirit world, don't you?
I mean, I don't particularly. I'm not really clairvoyant. I am a little clairaudient, and sometimes I get messages by clairaudience.
Oh,
Sandra's clairvoyant, and both of us occasionally have been in a mild form of trance, and people have spoken through us. So messages do come through us, but neither of us, if we give a message in that way, we can't actually remember what was said.
Okay, thank you. Someone asked, you captured spirit in the skull experiment on photographs. You're telling in a blog post that you use Delaware camera, and also during later seances, and it worked on radionic physics principles, some which goes hand in hand with physical phenomena. She asked you, she is making herself, like I am, but she is making herself photos. So she want to ask that I ask you if you can explain this.
The incidents or the experiments we did with a Delaware camera was after the skull experiment. They were not combined in any way, shape or form, and that was not a part of skull. But we did meet somebody who was involved in this method of healing, and he owned a Delaware camera. He was a chap called Peter, I can't remember his surname, Peter Moscow, sorry, and he lived in America, in Louisville, I think, in Kentucky, and he asked if I would actually take this camera that he owned. I think at the time it was the only Delaware camera available, and he owned this one, and he said, would we actually do some experiments with it, which we did. But we never got the sort of results that Delaware himself had got with it, and nor did we get any communication with or from our own spirit team. So it was just a period that we were sort of working with this form of electronic healing, and it was not fully successful in the time that we had it, which was for about a period of 2 years before we left Skull eventually.
Okay. It's do you know the man called Robert van der Broeke, a Dutchman? Have you heard of him?
I've heard of him. I don't know him. Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen some of his photographers?
Yes, I have. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing as well.
It's
Because
very good.
it's not why I mention him. I interviewed him recently a few times, but why I mention this is because it doesn't matter which camera he holds in his hand. They can give him the camera from a cameraman, they give him a simple digital camera. If it will occur, it occurs on the camera.
Yes, yeah. Now that is very, very interesting, because I have discovered the same thing with EVP. I've done, because I had a really lot of experience with EVP in the days of the rowdy voices, I still occasionally do EVP experiments, and I've never lost the ability to get EVP on a recorder. And of course, it happens now, because I'm using more of the sort of digital recorders than I did then. That was all tape recorders back in those days. But I found that if I was able to sort of take somebody else's tape recorder or digital recorder when I was doing a workshop and use it myself, then EVP came on that recorder. But I also found that after that had happened, that person themselves went on to get EVP using the same recorder.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I like now very much, while you're talking about it, to combine the spirit photography with the EVP, so that they can speak about what we are seeing, what they try to show us. And this is the experiments I'm involved now with our group. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, the progress that people are making is quite fantastic.
It is, absolutely. So this even it was a very good camera. It was especially the man who took the pictures, I believe, if I listen to you well, like Robert said. Okay, thank you so much. I got more questions for you, of course. Let's see. Someone asked, what do you think, Robin, are the necessary conditions for spirit to have the best conditions to show themselves in photos? This question is both material and immaterial.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's something that I really couldn't advise on, because our spirit photography was done in a totally different way. The spirit photography we did at Skoll was done on rolls of film, which of course no longer seem to be around these days. So the technicality of the whole thing was totally and utterly different. And we were doing it under controlled seance conditions, which meant that spirit were the ones that were able to control it under the conditions they'd asked for and under the conditions we sat in, because we always respected our spirit team. If they asked us to sit in a particular way or do a particular thing, we did it exactly so that they could get the best results.
Yes, I think this is why it is so necessary, or let's say such a blessing, if you can combine the mental mediumship with that they can cross over their wishes.
Yes.
And, this is wonderful. Otherwise, it's very difficult, I believe, for groups to work.
Well, I think that's exactly right. Yes. So, and the thing is, I mean, I always say to people, what they must do is listen to their spirit team. That's the most important thing of the lot. They need to get information from their spirit team and then do exactly what the spirit team wants.
Yes, that's it. Absolutely. That's so true. And we, of course, everybody, also in our experimental group, we have a lot of curiosities and I want to try this and that. But at the end, the spirit team has the big first and last word in it.
Indeed. Yes.
I noticed, yes. Okay. One more question. She asked also, what happens to all the material from the Skoll experiment? Yes, it was a question of one.
Well, yeah, I mean, the material from the Skoll experiment, apart from certain parts of it, have never been released to the public. And the decision behind that is down to the 4 people who were the members of the Skoll group. That's myself, Sandra, and the 2 mediums who worked with us. So we're not able to do anything without their say-so, and they really aren't able to do anything without ours. But we do intend in the future, once we have this centre and we have it open, and that's the headquarters of the Spiritual Science Foundation, people will be able to study some of the material, not necessarily all, but some of the material which we got at Skoll and which is still available. So there certainly will be archives in that centre that will contain everything about Skoll, and we hope then we will have every single recording of the Skoll experiment, which amounts to about 1,000 hours. That is there, and for certain people who are seriously researching seriously researching the subject, they'll be able to study it.
The gold of the earth, water.
Absolutely, yes, indeed, yeah.
That's wonderful. I hope it will open the center, and I hope the material will be taken good care of. And I understand that there are some agreements needed to bring it out, to bring it forward into the world. You must have your reasons for it, and all of them will have their reasons for it.
Yeah. I mean, we would wait for the say-so of our Skoll Spirit team before we were able to sort of give it literally to the public in any way. But you might find it interesting that the people who were members of the Skoll Spirit team are still working with us today. So we still listen to what they have to say.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. All the other questions I see she already asked, and when we can expect the opening of the Science Foundation in Spain. Now, we need to wait for the money. That's
the money is the big thing. We've done everything we can to try and raise it. As I say, I think we've currently raised nearly 32,000 euros. We need to get about another 170,000 before we can open it. But for the size of the building, the size of everything there, it's a very, very reasonable price, and to get such a large amount of land as well.
Yes. Maybe one of our last questions, but there are many more to ask, but I need to make a choice. Of course, I've read the book of Skoll Experiment and your other book, but the very thick book, the expensive one.
Yes.
Oh, what I mean, what's the name of it?
Witnessing the Impossible.
Yes, that's a very few hundred euros. Yes.
No. People are paying that amount for it, but it isn't available on Amazon. But people, I've seen it advertised at over 1,000 euros. But I've still got plenty of new copies, and the new copies don't cost anything like as much as that. To buy a new copy that's sent out by post in the UK is 19 UK pounds, £19.50. To buy a new copy that's sent out to Europe, including the Netherlands, is £24.50. And to buy a brand new copy that goes by airmail out to Australia, New Zealand, USA, etc., is only £29.50.
And we're talking about the same book.
That's the original book. But in order to order a copy, people need to contact me on my personal email, which is skolexperiment@yahoo.co.uk. And I can set up a sale. If they want to buy a book, they can do so by contacting me on that address.
Of course. Here's the first one who will. Robin, which part of the book would you like people to read the most? What is for you one of the, or maybe three of the parts that you say Oh, I would love people not to look over that, because a lot of pages. How many pages are in the book?
I can't tell you exactly, although I will have a little look, seeing as I've got one here in front of me. 560 pages. It's a hardback version, and it's very heavy. That's why the post costs so much.
Yes. So I hope to be one of the owners of that book soon. Which part would you love to, let's say, to give more attention than the important other parts?
Well, I have looked at some of the statements about the book, which are on Amazon. They're very interesting. They all feel that they were helped by the book, and that they felt by reading the book from start to finish that they were in the seances themselves and experiencing it. So I would say to anybody that buys the book, you should read it from cover to cover.
Yes, they will. If they buy it, they will, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's a book that is a diary. It's in diary format. So every session of the Skoll experiment goes after the one before. So from 1993 right through to 1998, it's all in there.
Okay. I see a lot more questions, but I think we have talked about a lot of it. I see one question coming by. A lady who likes to know, in the seances now, like Carl Muge, that he has searched before, very carefully.
Yeah.
And sometimes even his wife Julia. For people who are witnessing the seances.
Yeah.
The Skoll experiment never did, I believe.
No, that was never the case. Anybody that came and sat with us had to really rely on trust. And there are many hundreds of people that did sit with us and were very, very happy at the results they witnessed.
Yes, of course they are. But if you were doing the same seances today with scientists who were present, would you, they never asked to...
They were told beforehand that would not be allowed.
Okay. And this was pure because you want to have them, that they have the feeling of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I mean, I would do exactly the same thing today, and may actually still do it, because it is intended that our own circle, which we've renamed the Torkal group, and this circle will demonstrate when we have the new premises, along with the Seagate circle. Kai Muge is actually our vice president. So Kai Muge will be demonstrating there, and other groups, other physical mediums who have actually developed in between.
Yes. One last question. In the beginning, you were telling that there are now a lot of people are developing independent voice in almost 2 years.
Yes. Yeah. If they're going to get it, they get it in that time.
Yes. But what do you mean with a lot of people? Because I don't know a lot of people who are having developed in 2 years. You mean worldwide? There are some people.
I'm talking about worldwide. I get so many emails, personal emails from people, and not always members of our foundation, but people who have sort of started circles. They want to tell me about it. They ask my advice. So I'm always in touch, and I'm always being told by people, again, they tell me on trust that I'm not going to tell anybody else about their current experiments till they're ready to actually show other people.
Yes, of course. Is there something you would like to share that we haven't talked about in this conversation with each other?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we've covered quite a lot of the subject in this.
Yes, I think it was a wonderful conversation, Robin. Thank you again for that. And in time, when there are new developments and new questions, we will contact.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, hope you will.
All right.
So I wish you all well, bless you. your health.
Thank you very much. And stay safe yourself in this difficult, dangerous time.
We said goodbye. So stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bless you.
Cheerio now. Bye bye.